All right, so now that you know what a rep managed buy is and the difference between the self-serve, the hybrid, and the rep managed networks, I'm just going to talk very quickly. It's going to be a quick lesson about the campaign launching, the monitoring, and the optimization and that sort of stuff. And the reason it's going to be a quick lesson is because much of the setup is very, very similar to what I showed in the direct-to-site media buying module when I went into Ad Shuffle and how to set up the buy. So pretty much everything's going to be the same except with a few key little differences. So this right now I'm inside of Ad Shuffle and I'm just showing you one of the publishers that we have that is one of the rep managed networks, and it's it's a network called Investing Channel. I mentioned that earlier. They have investing traffic and that sort of thing, and there's a few networks like that. So within their portfolio of sites, it's a bunch of investing centric. Investment centric websites. So if you're looking for that type of traffic, it's a pretty good place to start. The main differences are, the package names, it's going to be RON, RON, which is run of network. Now, remember what I said before, with run of network, I would only do that if you have ads and creatives that have worked going direct to site successfully. In the case of this campaign was actually successful on Google's display network, which is kind of like a run of network. I mean, not quite because you target by keywords, but it was already showing success on a network outside of Investing Channel. So we brought the successful ads over. So remember, it's really important when you're doing these network buys, especially if it's run of network, which is tricky to do because the traffic quality, it's blind, you don't know where it's coming from, and it can vary. You want to be able to take over your successful ads, and you want to have a successful offer. I do not recommend going and testing run of network traffic if you don't have successful ads or you don't have a successful offer in place. Even better than doing run of network is once you have a proof of concept on the direct sites or Google Display Network, which we'll talk about, and you want to bring it over. Ideally, you can bring it over to one of the guaranteed placements or one of the higher quality premium placements because you know it's going to perform very, very well and you know your numbers when it comes to the direct site buys or Google, for example. So just to show you an example, one other thing that you're going to notice is when you go to these networks, often you can negotiate to just run one banner size, for example, like a 300 by 250 like we have here. Now, the reps will often want you to run various banner sizes. Again, stick to your guns when it comes to this, and only run the banner sizes that are strong for you. With Investing Channel here, we've been running with them for a while, and we actually came and brought over our 300 by 250 banners as well as our 728 by 90. We didn't have the other ones in there, but once we gauged the traffic quality and we understood that the traffic was working well, that was when we brought in the other banner sizes. The other thing that you'll notice is on these networks, many of them have retargeting ability, and so they're going to give you that option as well, and they'll want, again, a separate placement for that. So you're going to have a separate placement within your ad server for the 120 by 60 banners, 300 by 250, every banner size, as well as the 300 by 250s. Let's go and take a look at inside the banners here. But first, I just want to show you the data from the last 30 days on this Investing Channel buy. And you can see that the majority of conversions have come from this 300 by 250 line, which has always been historically our strongest one on this network and for this campaign. Now, one thing of note is this, and this is one of the pitfalls of these blind networks. Often, and this is why you usually don't want to go with run of network right away unless you're very experienced, your click-through rates are going to be a lot lower than what you'll typically see on a direct-to-site media buy or on Google Display Network. For example, these ads right here, the 300 by 250s, these will average often on Google Display Network around 0.3 for us, whereas they're half of that on Investing Channel. So you do have to understand that on the blind networks, you don't know if your ads are running below the fold, so lower down on the page, or above and that sort of thing. So do keep that in mind. As I mentioned, the quality can vary. The advantage, as we talked about, they can be extremely scalable and very much hands-off. With this Investing Channel buy, for the most part, we barely actually look at this media buy because it's rep managed. So let's go into the banners and look at performance. And I'll talk about what your job basically is when it comes to these rep managed buys. So we'll look at last 30 days, for example. And so the conversion CPA here on this offer, for example, we're finding that below $70 per conversion is an acceptable conversion, acceptable CPA for us. Now these ones, 102, 117, we let them run a little higher, and we may be chopping these ones down. So in this case, when it comes to optimization, you can go in, and I could go in and we can pull out these ads. Absolutely. You still have control in your ad server, but you do want to make the rep accountable. And that's probably the biggest part of your job when you're doing the rep managed buys. And like I talked about when you're negotiating with the reps, a good rep should be able to say, on your initial phone call with them, they'll say, well, it's going to vary, but we should be able to hit your CPA, 50% of your CPA within 5 days and 100% of it within 10 days. Those are usually the goals I like to go to, 100% between 10 and 14 days at the most, and they should be getting to within 50% of it within about 5 to 7 days. Okay, so if you're not seeing that, and in this case, there's certain reasons on the back end why we allowed it to run a little higher. There's quite a good margin on there. But if you're not seeing that, and you feel that they're bleeding money, immediately pull out of that buy, and do not let the reps say, okay, well, give us a bit more time, and we'll optimize and we'll make it work. Because more often than not, if they can't make it work within 14 days, you either have a lazy rep or they're selling you inventory and traffic that isn't the best quality that they have on their network. Okay, a good example of this was a buy with Yahoo. What we were doing with Yahoo, they're a very big network. The rep wanted to offer us the run of network traffic, so we bought that in addition to some more premium traffic. The run of network traffic wasn't performing as well as the premium traffic, obviously. Now the thing about it though is, they will often want to sell you that run of network traffic simply because there's better margin on it. It goes through different exchanges and that sort of thing. Whereas going direct to the premium traffic would hit our CPA much, much faster. So again, in that case, we would provide them two separate placements, right? Two separate placements within Ad Shuffle, and we'll be able to track, run of network versus premium and that sort of thing. And that allows us to be able to see which line item and which placement is hitting the CPA we want and which ones aren't. And the ones that aren't, we'll hold them accountable for that. And if they don't turn it around within the deadlines that we're setting, 5 days, 10 days, whatever, then we're going to pull the plug. Launching an optimization, other than that, on the rep managed buys, there isn't as much that you do typically as on the direct site buys, because often they will also manage the ads that they're showing on their end. So sometimes you'll see one of your placements stops running, and that's because they're not getting conversions. They're not seeing conversions on it, and so that's it. They're going to kill that line. The last part about it is, and this is extremely important, you do not run a rep managed buy, and I mentioned this before, without them providing you a pixel. Okay, so they're going to provide you a network pixel. And so that's the last step before the buy even launches, is they're going to give you a pixel. You have to place that on your conversion thank you page. If you don't do that, you're pretty much asking for them to fly blind, and they're not going to be able to optimize the account effectively, and you're definitely not going to be able to. And again, like I said before, the ad server is essential for the rep managed buys. With that, there isn't really too much else to it, other than keeping your rep accountable, making sure that tracking's always in place, and watching your numbers very, very closely, especially like we said before, 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours, and then watching it daily, ideally after that. You don't have to watch it too much. There may be fluctuations, but the amount of volume that can go on these networks is scary in a very short amount of time if you don't know what you're doing. So it's really important that you keep an eye on your regular numbers daily and every 48 hours at the least. Things like I just also mentioned, things like even delivery. You want to make sure that the buy is being spent evenly. A lot of these networks, as I mentioned before, will try to spend a whole bunch in the beginning, saying that, oh, it's the ad server, their ad server, their delivery platform needs to warm up and that sort of thing. You shouldn't have to pay for that. If your insertion order has $300 or $500 per day cap in place, then that's what you do. So other than that, really launching and optimizing is very similar to the direct to site buys, except you're not necessarily going to be managing as hands-on. You get the pixels in place, you get them the tags, and you watch closely, and you keep that rep accountable. And that's it for managing the rep managed buys. Again, like I said, this was more kind of an overview of it. Really, it's relatively similar to the direct to site buys. It's just a few things that they need to stay more accountable on. So after this, I'm going to go and I'm going to show you some over the shoulder of campaign setup on a few self-managed and hybrid networks, the ones that I mentioned before. There's AdBlade, ASL, which is AdSonar, AOL sponsored listings, and WAM CPC. So we'll see you in those lessons, and we'll show you how to get hands-on and launch your own self-serve campaigns. All right, now before I get into that, is one quick thing that I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure we didn't forget to put this into the content. Now, when you are doing your rep managed buys, what will often happen, and we just recently had this issue, in that there's two types of conversions typically. There's what's called a view-through conversion, and there's a click-through conversion. I mean, there's more than that, but those are the two that you really have to concern yourself with. Now, most of us in the direct response space, most of us who are buying traffic to see an immediate return, then we value what's called the click-through conversion first. And what that means is when somebody clicks, they convert right at that time. Okay. Now, a view-through conversion can be tricky. The way that networks look at view-through conversions, it's more of a branding metric. So someone may have seen your ad at one time. They didn't click it at that time, but later on, maybe 2 weeks to a month later, 7 days later, whatever, they then clicked on an ad and then they purchased. Now, you might be running traffic on different networks at the same time, but one network will say that they generated that view-through conversion even though the person clicked the ad later on, which could have been on a direct-to-site media buy or any other traffic source. Google has this metric as well. I personally only value click-through conversions because I want to be able to measure short-term and short-tail what my profit, revenue, ROI, EPC, all that stuff is. So it's really important that if the reps are saying to you, well, we're seeing X amount of view-through conversions, and the number will always be higher, that's probably not the conversion that you value. You value when someone clicks, do they purchase from that traffic source right then and there? If not, then that traffic source, that network rep shouldn't be attributing and optimizing to the view-through conversion. So I always make sure that they're optimizing to the click-through conversion. So with that, now we'll get on to self-managed buys, and I'll just show you some over-the-shoulder setups to get you started right away.